In a quiet corner of Greenwich Village, New York, stands a house that just by hearing its name is enough to send shivers down your spine. The House of Death. This name has become synonymous with eerie tales and unexplainable deaths. Built in the 19th century, this house holds more than just a dark past. It's a place where souls never find peace. Every night when darkness falls, this house comes alive in its own sinister way. It's not through loud noises or flashing lights, but through the eerie presence of restless spirits, souls trapped in torment, never allowed to pass on. The House of Death isn't just an old, dilapidated building. It's a silent witness to countless secrets. It stands as a grim reminder of the untold stories, where each wall, each room, holds the whispers of lost lives. You might think it's just an abandoned house, but those who've dared approach know it's much more than that. As night falls, the House of Death is no longer just a building. It becomes a realm where spirits remain, lingering, waiting for those who dare to uncover the darkness hidden within. Would you have the courage to step inside and discover what waits behind those walls? The story begins here, but the house, it never stops watching. In a quiet corner of Greenwich Village, New York, there stands a house that just by hearing its name makes you feel a chill run down your spine. The House of Death, a name that is forever linked to eerie tales and unexplained deaths. Built in the 19th century, this house is more than just an old building. It is a place where souls never find peace. As night falls, this house becomes something else entirely. It isn't the loud noises or flashing lights that make it sinister, but the eerie presence of restless spirits, souls trapped in torment, unable to move on. The House of Death isn't just a crumbling structure. It's a silent witness to countless untold stories, a place where every wall, every room holds the whispers of lost lives. It might seem like an ordinary abandoned house to some, but to those who've dared approach, it's much more than that. When the sun sets, the House of Death isn't just a house. It becomes a realm, a dark domain, where spirits linger, waiting for those who dare to uncover the darkness hidden within. Would you be brave enough to step inside and face the secrets behind those walls? This is where the story begins. But the house, it never stops watching. In 1987, the House of Death became infamous, not only for its eerie reputation, but also because of a shocking murder that would forever haunt its legacy. Joel Steinberg, a well-known lawyer, once lived in this house with his adopted daughter Lisa. But one cold winter night, everything changed. That night, the silence of the house was shattered by the desperate screams of a child. That child was Lisa, just 6 years old. Her death was not an accident. She was brutally murdered by her very own adopted father, Joel Steinberg. The blood and agony stained the floors, and in the eerie stillness of the house, Lisa was gone forever. But her death was just the beginning of a series of strange and unexplainable events. After the murder, the house was no longer a place of peace. People living nearby reported hearing the sound of a child's crying coming from the house during quiet nights. The sobbing was faint, as if a spirit trapped in torment was calling for help. Some even claimed to have seen the image of a little girl in a white dress, her eyes filled with sorrow, standing by the window, staring out into the night with lifeless eyes. A month after Lisa's death, a group of supernatural investigators decided to enter the house, determined to uncover the truth behind the disturbing events. Equipped with all the necessary gear, recorders, infrared cameras, they had no idea that they were about to face something far beyond their understanding. The moment they entered the house, the air grew unbearably cold, as if the building itself was alive. With every step they took, they felt a strange presence, as though something was silently watching them. The house was not just a building. It was a living, breathing entity that refused to let go of its dark past. As they ventured deeper into the house, they heard voices, whispers that could not be explained. "Help me." The voice was faint, but unmistakable. It was Lisa's voice, calling from the depths of the house, unable to move on. The investigators didn't know if it was a supernatural phenomenon or a figment of their imagination. But one thing was clear: they were not alone. The house was not just haunted by a murder. It was a vessel for the trapped souls of those who had died there, including Lisa. These spirits were not seeking peace. They were waiting for justice, for release from the torment of their untimely deaths. The House of Death had become more than just a place of horror. It had become a prison for the restless souls, with Lisa's spirit forever tied to the house, crying out for help and never finding peace. Would the investigators uncover the truth, or would they become another lost soul, trapped in the endless darkness of the House of Death? After Lisa's tragic death, the House of Death became more than just a place of sorrow. It turned into a living nightmare, where supernatural phenomena could no longer be ignored. Every night, as darkness fell, the house didn't just stand silent. It came alive in ways that defied explanation. The air grew heavier, colder, as though the house itself was breathing, harboring the restless spirits trapped inside. The cries of those who died there could be heard in the stillness, echoes of lives lost too soon. A famous group of paranormal investigators, known for their success in solving supernatural mysteries, decided to return to the house. They believed that they could uncover the truth behind the disturbing events that had plagued the house for years. Armed with high-tech equipment, audio recorders, infrared cameras, and temperature sensors, they hoped to finally get to the bottom of what was truly happening. However, nothing could have prepared them for the horrors they were about to face. As they entered the house, the cold immediately hit them. It wasn't the kind of chill that one would expect in an old building. This was an unnatural cold, the kind that chilled them to the bone. Every step they took echoed through the empty house, but they weren't alone. They could feel the presence of something, someone, watching them from the darkness. The house seemed to have a life of its own, its silence broken only by faint sounds, whispers in the air, the faintest hint of movement in the shadows. One of the investigators, Sarah, couldn't resist the pull of the old piano that sat in the corner of the living room. The dusty keys beckoned to her, and she couldn't help but play a few notes. As soon as her fingers touched the keys, the air shifted. The piano began to play, but not as Sarah had intended. The melody shifted on its own, becoming darker, twisted, as though an invisible hand was guiding the keys. Sarah quickly withdrew her hand, but the haunting melody didn't stop. It played on, louder and more distorted, like a warning from the other side. Then came the sound that none of them would ever forget, a soft, breathless sigh that seemed to come from directly behind them. Sarah spun around, heart racing, but no one was there. The air grew thicker, colder still. The whispers grew louder, voices overlapping, murmuring, "Help me, help me." Investigators were now fully aware that they weren't just dealing with paranormal activity. They were surrounded by spirits, trapped in the house, unable to move on. Suddenly, from the shadows, a figure emerged. A woman in a white dress, her hair long and wild, stood motionless, facing the wall. Slowly, she turned, and when their eyes met, a wave of horror flooded the room. Her face, her once human face, was now distorted, covered in blood, eyes wide and lifeless. Her mouth opened, emitting a sound that was less of a scream and more of a soul-wrenching cry, a sound so chilling it seemed to echo through time. Frozen in terror, the investigators could not move. They stood, staring at the ghostly figure as the temperature in the room plummeted. They understood now. This was not just a house full of restless spirits. This was a house where the dead lingered, where their pain and rage had transformed the very fabric of the house itself. The house had become their prison, a never-ending cycle of torment. The spirits, including Lisa, were not simply haunting the house. They were living in it, feeding off its darkness, eternally waiting for the justice they were denied in life. The investigators were now trapped in a nightmare they couldn't escape. They could hear more voices now, all crying out for help, all trapped in the same endless loop. The house had claimed them just as it had claimed those before them. Would they ever be able to escape? Or would they become part of the haunted legacy of the House of Death, forever caught in its web of sorrow and vengeance? The house still stands, towering over the neighborhood, a grim monument to the dark past it has witnessed. The House of Death isn't just infamous for its eerie reputation. It is cursed by the 22 unexplained deaths that have occurred within its walls. After hearing this story, you'll never look at that house the same way again. The truth about the house goes far beyond ghost stories or chilling rumors. Each of those 22 deaths is tied to a different soul, each carrying its own tragic story. And those souls, they are still there, trapped, never able to rest. The House of Death has become a prison for the restless spirits, each one lingering, waiting for something, a reckoning, a release, or simply the chance to be remembered. Those brave enough to step into the house, whether paranormal investigators or curious onlookers, have had to face an inescapable truth. The house is not simply haunted. It is a force of nature, alive with the pain of the lost souls within it. A renowned group of supernatural investigators, known for solving the most chilling cases, decided to return to the house to uncover the final, terrifying truth. Armed with high-tech gear, audio recorders, cameras, temperature sensors, they were determined to discover the cause of the house's dark power. But no one, not even the most experienced investigators, could have prepared for what awaited them. The moment they crossed the threshold, a biting cold seized them. It wasn't the chill of an old building. This was a supernatural cold, seeping into their bones. Every step they took echoed through the emptiness, but they weren't alone. A heavy presence hung in the air, as though something was silently watching them, waiting. The house wasn't just a building. It was alive, alive with the trapped souls and their restless energy. As they ventured deeper, they began hearing whispers, soft at first, but growing louder, more insistent. "Help me." The voice was faint, but unmistakable. It was Lisa's voice, crying out for justice, for release. The investigators weren't sure if they were hearing it from the house itself, or if it was just a product of their minds. But the sense of dread was undeniable. They were not just experiencing the supernatural, they were witnessing it firsthand. And then the unimaginable happened. One investigator, Mark, stepped into the darkened hallway, his flashlight flickering. From the shadows, a figure appeared. A woman, pale and ghostly, stood motionless, facing the wall. Her long hair hung in disarray, and her white dress billowed as if moved by an unseen wind. When she turned around, her face was not human. It was twisted, bloodied, with empty, lifeless eyes that seemed to pierce through them. Her mouth opened, and a sound so chilling, so filled with anguish, escaped from her throat. It wasn't a scream, but a sound that seemed to carry all the suffering of the house within it. Frozen in terror, the investigators stood still. The air grew thick, the temperature dropping further. They realized that the house was more than just haunted. It had become a living nightmare, where the pain of the lost souls had fused with the very structure of the building. Spirits weren't just trapped here, they were the house. The investigators could hear more voices now, murmurs of the souls that had died there, trapped in an eternal cycle of suffering. The house of death was not just a place, it was a prison for the tormented, an inescapable realm where the dead had become the keepers of their own torment. As the investigators tried to leave, they found themselves unable to find a way out. Each door they opened only led to more darkness. The house had claimed them, just as it had claimed those before them. Would they ever escape? Or would they become another part of the tortured legacy of the house of death, forever bound to the spirits that haunt it? The truth is, the house of death will never let go. It waits endlessly for the next soul to cross its threshold. And one day, it could be yours. And so the story of the house of death comes to an end. But the haunting legacy of this place is far from over. The souls trapped within its walls, the untold stories of agony and despair, continue to linger in the darkness. The house is not just a building. It is a prison for the restless spirits who have been denied peace. Those who have dared to enter have found themselves unable to escape, trapped in a cycle of terror that will never end. The truth about the house is clear. It is not merely haunted, it is alive with the energy of the lost, the vengeful, and the tormented. The house of death is a place where death itself cannot rest, where the dead are bound forever to the place of their suffering. The question remains, will this nightmare ever end, or will the house of death continue to claim more victims, adding to the ever-growing list of souls lost to its grasp? Those who have entered may never know, but one thing is certain: the house will always be there, waiting, watching, and ready to take the next unwitting soul that dares to cross its threshold. This story may have ended, but the house of death will never stop. Its darkness is eternal, and its grip is unrelenting. And as you finish reading, remember, the house is always watching. It may just be waiting for you.